Hello, Peter.
Hi, hello, how are you?
Very well. I've had huge pleasure revisiting your lengthy career, which continues apace. My first question is, did you find acting, or did acting find you?
Acting found me, really. When I left school at 15 without any qualifications, no GCEs or things like that. And my first job was in a machine shop on a capstan making nuts and bolts. And I had a series of jobs between the age of 15 and just before I was 18 when I got a scholarship to RADA. But one thing I was quite good at was drawing, and I decided to join an amateur company in Ladbroke Grove, which is near where I lived in North London and in Kilburn, the unofficial capital of Ireland.
Absolutely.
And, yeah, my dad was a Dubliner. And so I joined this group, and they needed an actor to play, an amateur actor, obviously, to play a part that they couldn't cast. And they said, you have to play it. It was a character in Arsenic and Old Lace, and Teddy Brewster, a character, a nutty character. I was far too young for it. And but it was a very funny character. And from the very first performance, when I got people laughing, I felt quite at home in the situation of being on stage and working with an audience. And I was then just about 16 and a bit, and I thought, this is for me, really. And so it just sort of tapped me on the shoulder and took me.
Was it like a sort of gambler getting an early win and therefore being hooked?
Absolutely, I would. That's a very good, very good description. Yes, it was exactly like that. I just something clicked, like getting a jackpot, and it totally changed my life. It organized my life. It gave me a direction. It educated me. It was just phenomenal. Luckiest thing that ever happened to me.
And how did the scholarship to RADA come about? Of course, RADA, one of the foremost seats of dramatic education, not just in the UK, but in the world. So how did that scholarship happen?
I auditioned for 5 drama schools. They were the 5 big drama schools, LAMDA, Central, RADA, Drama Centre, and Bristol or Vic.
Wow.
And I got into all of them, which was amazing. And RADA was offering a scholarship, and that's how, just by auditioning, basically.
And how did you adapt to this academic environment? I mean, albeit a creative one, a drama school, but your previous experience of academic institutions clearly wasn't great. So did you take a bit of time to adapt?
A little bit. I think I did a little bit. I was very intimidated when I first went there because it was full of extremely middle class and upper class. RADA at the time, this is in 1964, was still considered to be like a bit of a finishing school for young ladies. And so I was a bit intimidated by, I was brought up on a council estate in North London, as I said, Kilburn. Yeah. So I had already, for a year and a half, worked on my voice and tried to kind of straighten out my sort of North London accent. So, in fact, to a degree, when the voice teacher turned to me at RADA and said during one of the classes, Egan, are you hiding a very dodgy past? And I said, you don't know how dodgy. So, but they had a very, very good voice teacher, and that kind of. So I developed a voice that made me sound like I came from exactly the opposite as the class I did come from. Everyone thinks I'm very posh, Eton educated, and I'm always playing lords and kings and poets and stuff like that. So I learned quickly, and I just sort of invented this character that I am now. I always felt in the very beginning, although I loved acting, I loved the energy of acting, and I loved the return, the sense of being that you get from acting. I also always felt a bit of a fraud because I knew that I was an actor acting an actor. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I wasn't just because in those days the aim was to get standard English, and so they didn't go so much for accents as they have done in the last 30 or 40 years, if you like. So I think I only really sort of accepted myself, the persona that I had created, in my late 30s, early 40s, by which time I'd been an actor for, over 20 years. And it was only then that I really sort of joined up both parts of myself, if that makes any sense.
For sure.
And maybe it's because you only grow up really when you're 40s, I don't know.
Well, yes, because I wonder whether acting, it can either be therapeutic and very redemptive, or it can be dysfunctional, depending on how you play it.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think it's very therapeutic. And it becomes dysfunctional if you can't separate yourself from the part, and if you're the kind of person that there were actors. I think actors fall into two categories: those that want to do something to an audience, and those that want to do something to themselves. And the ones who would do something to themselves in their acting are the ones that generally become dysfunctional. And the ones who want to do something to an audience become sort of emotional storytellers, and you get the opportunity to experience vicariously all kinds of emotions, and that's quite therapeutic because you can release tensions and experience things that you might not be experiencing in your life, and it kind of has a catharsis which is quite therapeutic, yeah.
Lots of people that come out of drama school, especially one as revered as RADA, think that they're essentially days away from winning their first BAFTA or Oscar. And as you know, the reality can be quite sobering when they realise how hard it is to get work. So to what extent did you struggle after drama school, or did you land on your feet quickly?
I landed on my feet quickly. In fact, I would say 94% of the people I was at RADA with gave it up in the first 5 years of being professionals. No, I was very, very lucky. I got an agent. I did a show at the Unity Theatre in Camden Town when I was in my 5th term at RADA. And an agent came to see it and asked to represent me, and he became my agent for the next 30-odd years. And so while I was in my final year, he said, you might as well get used to auditioning at a time that you don't need the job. So why don't you audition for a season at Chichester Festival Theatre? This was in 1966. And I auditioned and I got a job. And it was an actor-manager called Sir John Clements. He said, come up onto the stage, dear boy, I'd like you to come to Chichester. And I said, well, I'm terribly sorry, Sir John, I'm a drama student at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art. I haven't finished my training yet. And he said, don't worry, dear boy, I'm on the council, you're coming. So I got my first job before I'd finished my course at RADA. And then I was 19 at the time then, and I just went on from job to job until my late 20s. And in my late 20s, it was the first time that I suffered any real unemployment, because up until that point, I was doing a television series or a play in the theatre and a film, and I'd won awards and stuff like that. And when I was 29, 30, I suddenly thought I wanted to change direction a bit. But also I was going from being a younger leading man into being a leading man. And that's a corner you have to turn. And sometimes when you turn those corners, you get a bit stuck in the traffic. And I got stuck in the traffic for about a year. And I thought I'd never work again. That was the only time in my life I've been unemployed. And it was for nearly a year. Yeah. It was a big lesson to me. And it taught me not to take too many things for granted.
Yes, and I'm sure that a year feels a long time for an out-of-work actor, for anyone, frankly, in between jobs. And you've dabbled in so many genres with great distinction. I mean, sitcoms is one of the many genres that you've mastered. Yes. And I've got happy memories of watching Ever-Decreasing Circles, which was a really big hit. It was amazing, yes. In fact, I'd been saying to my agent for some time, there we are, great, Richard Briers and Penny Wilton, wonderful. Yeah. I've been saying to my agent for some time,
in the late 70s, early 80s. This is around that kind of transitional time where I suddenly found myself unemployed. And I went to America with my wife, my late wife, Myra, and our daughter, Rebecca. I was asked to do a professorship at a Mills College to direct a play and teach styles. And it was a most wonderful experience. And while I was there, my agent said, you wanted to do a comedy series, well, one has come up. And I was at the point where I'd gone to New York and was coming back to the UK. It was before the facility of, sort of emails and stuff like that. Everything had to be sent by post. And they said they won't be able to send you the scripts because by the time they send them to New York, you'll be back in London. So they'd like you to accept the part unseen. And I've never, ever had accepted the part in my life without reading a script. And I said, okay, well, who's in it? And he said, Richard Briers and Penelope Wilton. And I said, I'll do it. And I was so pleased that I made that decision, because when I came back and read the scripts and we started working together, it was just a magical union. And we did 4 series between 83 and 89.
84 and 89, according to my research.
Yeah.
I mean, a hit sitcom, one of the great sitcoms of the 80s. And Egan, I just thought you were the king of the deadpan on that show. Not easy being the comic foil to Richard Briers, but I thought you absolutely nailed it.
Well, thank you very much. It was a great lesson working with Richard, because Richard was such a superb... He could do anything. He was a great farceur. He was a great light comedian. He was a great clown. And so I found that he was making me laugh so much when we were rehearsing that I thought the only way I'm going to survive this is if I make him making me laugh part of my character, which I did. And we created a great relationship. And it also took the sting out of it, because I think Paul and his kind of effect on Martin in the series could have been a bit, I've used the word, a bit poncy, and I tried to make it as human as possible. And it became a magical chemistry between the two of us. It was wonderful to do.
It was, and I just thought you showed your dry wit, and it's really hard to survive a scene with Richard Briers and not be completely destroyed by the man. But, you held your own brilliantly. Of course, you were reunited indirectly with Penelope Wilton in Downton. I'll come to that in a moment. But you have, I've got to say, worked with some of the comedy greats, not just Richard Briers, Ricky Gervais, the monster global Netflix hit Afterlife. And I think you're on pretty good terms with Ricky, aren't you?
Yes, we get on incredibly well. I think he's a brilliant man. I do think he's a genius. And we do a huge amount of work in the world of animal welfare and animal rights. He loves animals as much as I do. And so we work on many, many campaigns. And he is remarkable in that he is probably now one of the most well-known people in the world. He does have international celebrity, but he is still very grounded, and he will always... He walks the walk and talks the talk in terms of campaigns and things. He's remarkable.
And clearly he's a fan of great 80s comedy, 80s sitcoms. You weren't just reunited with Penelope Wilton on Downton Abbey, but he got both of you together. He put the band back together, if you like, for Afterlife.
In fact, Ever Decreasing Circles, he says, is his favourite ever situation comedy. So, and the reason he wanted both Penny and myself in Afterlife was that I just want to get Paul and Anne on the bench together, because it never happened in Ever Decreasing Circles. So he said, I'd like to put both together, which is what happened with Afterlife.
And how does he work? Tell me about what it's like filming with Gervais, because from the outtakes, there appears to be a lot of hilarity.
There's a huge amount of hilarity. I mean, he is an auteur, if you like. He has created this world of eccentric Brits, and he casts it beautifully. He has his own sort of repertory of actors. So he doesn't over-direct. He knows precisely what he wants, and he encourages you to be you. He encourages you to use the skills that you have My skills would be of being quite naturalistic and, as you say, quite dry. So he would just nudge me in that direction without actually saying something. He would say, "Look, you be a bit quieter there, be a bit, don't push it so hard." It's a very, very gentle way of directing, but it's very, very clear. And plus the fact he writes it, produces it, directs it, and stars in it, which is quite a phenomenal achievement. I don't know how he does that. He'll have directed a scene that he's starring in, and he'll step in and play it, and then go and look on the monitor, running back, and then say, "Let's just try this again." And he has so many things going on in his head at the same time. It's really clever. But he's a fantastic, easy person to work with, generous, full of humour and full of humanity. I can't praise him enough.
Well, I've got a flood of emails and texts and tweets. The clock's against us, Peter. We could talk to you for 3 hours, let alone 15 minutes. Let me power through some of these if we can. James on email. James, thank you for your email. I know you're animal mad, as I've always followed you on Twitter, says James. The late great actor Robert Hardy always had his own dogs acting with him in All Creatures Great and Small. Have you had the opportunity to act in programmes with your animals?
No, I couldn't do that. My animals are hooligans. They'd never do what they're told.
So never work with children or Peter Egan's animals.
Absolutely right.
I've got another one from John. I've just bought the TV series A Perfect Spy.
Brilliant.
And he says you're a brilliant actor. And can he be confident in that purchase? Because I know you actually shot that in '87.
That's right. 87 we shot that. A Perfect Spy was my favourite ever dramatic role on television. It was the most beautifully written narrative by John le Carre, and Magnus Pym, the character I played, I think was sort of modelled on him and his real-life relationship with his father. And the story of A Perfect Spy is really all about guilt and regret. And it's a very, very human story that is centred around a father and son. And I thought it was remarkable, a remarkable book. And I loved playing the character. It was a wonderful, wonderful, challenging character to play.
Absolutely, and what an incredible story from John le Carre. Let's power through a few more because I've had so many brilliant audience questions. Thank you for all of your messages. And you've got lots of fans out there, Peter, as you well know. Victoria on email asks, as an animal advocate, I wondered what your thoughts are about the Environment Secretary allowing the culling of Geronimo the alpaca. I'm appalled, says Victoria.
Well, I join Victoria. I'm appalled as well. I think it was completely unnecessary, particularly as, TB isn't a danger. And the alpaca could have been kept in isolation. I think it was really a token gesture from DEFRA to kill the poor animal. And then people will say, well, what about all the cattle that are killed? I personally am against the slaughter of any animal. I'm a vegan. I'm an ethical vegan. So I think all animals should be given the same right to life as us humans.
I couldn't agree with you more. Otherwise, I'll get to questions that really are comments from so many viewers. So, for example, did Peter, who of course played the dashing Paul, like Martin more than he fancied Anne, and that's why he never made a move? Repeats of ever-decreasing circles, he says this particular message. Helped me through lockdown. That's right, that sitcom helped one of my viewers through lockdown. That was Ken. Ken, thank you for your message.
If I could tell you very quickly, if we have time, in fact, the last episode of the first series had Paul and Anne eloping. And we said, do we want to do another series of this? And they said, yes, of course. I said, well, you've just ended it now, because if Paul and Anne elope, there is no series. It's a triangle situation. So it was about to happen, but it never did.
Yeah, well said. It's like Del Boy. He must never become a millionaire next week. Otherwise, again, that dynamic changes, doesn't it?
Right.
Is there any great theatrical role you'd like to play? Asks Laura.
No, I'm happy now. I mean, I've been acting for 55 years. So I'm happy to play any good role now. Any role that's well written, I'm very happy to play.
Can I ask you, Peter, what it's like stepping onto the set of such an established show as Downton Abbey?
It's sensational. It's sensational because you have the cream of British theatre there, and they were all so welcoming, and I knew so many of them, and it was like getting into a warm bath, really. I mean, everyone was so generous and so kind, and there was a great party atmosphere, and it was just a treat, an out-and-out treat, and also to go into such a successful series that had, in fact, turned around the fate of UK TV, because at that time it was very much in the dumps, and Downton Abbey lifted it up again and told the world that the UK makes remarkable television.
Peter, as I said, I could talk to you all night. I'm going to get in huge trouble with my team. I've only got two pieces of business before we bid you farewell. Do you have a particular animal charity that you're especially fond of that you'd like our viewers to take a look at?
Yes, I would like your viewers to look at Animals Asia. It rescues moon bears from biofarms in China. It was founded by a remarkable and inspiring woman called Jill Robinson. Animals Asia is sensational. And of course, Nowzad, which is so much in the news at the moment with Pen Farthing, with the remarkable Operation Ark that he's just half accomplished at this moment in time. But my favorite charity on the planet is Animals Asia.
And finally, you've worked with God. Sorry, I mean John Cleese. Tell me about that man.
Well, I just love working with him. I mean, he is an outrageous man. But I mean, I've been a fan of his for 50 years. And so, in fact, I accepted Hold the Sunset because he was doing it, because I wanted to work with a legend like him. And he was just wonderful. Yeah, fantastic. And we often talked during the period that we were together of doing a two-hander of two blokes sitting in a zoo talking about all the animals, because he knows how much I love animals. So I said, anytime you want to do that, I'll do it with you.
I can't wait to see that one. Peter, we loved having you on the show. You've got so many fans, and it's been a tonic to talk to you about your career, which, as I said earlier, continues apace. I look forward to catching up soon. The amazing Peter Egan. Thank you, Peter.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows, and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.